7 Days to Die is like Minecraft's angsty teenage brother. I'm kidding, of course, it's unfair to judge this game in that way. While first loading into the game makes it seem as such, you can immediately recognize the differences. Firstly, a much more serious setting, with a world that looks like it was lived in. There are houses, hospitals, gas stations, cars, pawn shops, military outposts, you name it. While some resources are best obtained through breaking down items and chopping trees, most of what you will get will be through looting. You will always be searching containers, breaking into safes, and using resources to craft better items. This game also has a timer of sorts, where you're going to have to balance finding items, progressing in skill, and fortifying a base. This is because every 7 days, a horde of zombies will spawn near your location, sprinting towards you and destroying all you have built. This is a wildly satisfying gameplay loop, as it happens frequently enough to give the player a challenge when they start to feel comfortable, but not so often that the game feels like a zombie horde shooter game like Left 4 Dead. However, I'm not here to talk about how great of a game 7 Days to Die may be. I'm here to determine how well its achievements are implemented within the game. This is the achievement list review of 7 Days to Die. Upon first inspection of the achievements, one word comes to mind: unimaginative. For the most part, this is completely correct. This game ties most achievements to progression, and in some not so challenging ways. These achievement lines build off of each other, rewarding the player for the same achievement, just of varying degrees. For example, the Gravedigger for killing 10 zombies, and the Embalmer for killing 100 zombies. These are just the same challenge with higher requirements as you go on. There are 8 different lines with this progression system, most of which with 4 achievements within. There are a total of 33 of the 43 achievements falling into this category. First, the Thomas Edison line rewarding the player for crafting 5,000 items. This is an easy concept that may come through natural play, but is just as easily farmed by crafting the same item over and over. The Funeral Director line is awarded for killing 2,500 zombies. Again, very simple to do, just a long grind, especially if you're splitting kills with co-op partners. Speaking of the multiplayer, the Alexander the Great line of achievement rewards the player for killing 250 other players. For the most part, this is going to require another friend, willing to spend their time letting you spawn kill them hundreds of times. Neil Armstrong is awarded for traveling 1,000 kilometers. Again, this could come through natural play, but this is a ridiculously high requirement. However, the most disappointing of these achievement lines is Meet Your Maker for dying 500 times. This rewards the player for losing. No. 4 achievements are given to a player for the opposite of what you want in a video game, and there's no reasonable way to expect 500 deaths through natural gameplay. A player will find themselves atop a tall structure with a spawn point placed, jumping off over and over and over until this ridiculous number is met. Not only is this strict and uninteresting, but it opposes the gameplay rather than attempting to support it. At least with the prior examples, the achievements were supporting the gameplay for killing, crafting, and exploring, but there's nothing worth rewarding with this achievement line. Another achievement line is Survivalist for reaching Game Stage 1000. Game Stage is calculated pretty simply, taking in your player level plus your adjusted days alive multiplied by a solid 1.2. Game Stage determines the amount of enemies, size of hordes, and quality of loot you find. So the higher level you are and the longer you've survived with less deaths, the more difficult the zombies, but the better the loot. This is actually pretty cool, where the game adjusts its difficulty and pushes a natural sense of progression based on player performance, so the game is constantly changing along with the player. It's also cool to see where the player stands, allowing them to see what game stage they're on at any given time. There are just 2 annoyances with this line. Firstly, what does game stage mean? You can understand how it's calculated and what it does, but if your game stage 300, what does that do? How are the zombies and loot altered? What are the numbers? It's cool that the game changes, but how exactly does it change? And secondly, game stage 1000? Max player level is 150, so the amount of days needed to survive is ridiculous, especially if you've died a lot in the early game. This is steep, nearly impossibly steep. There's no reason whatsoever to have a requirement this high. If the developers want a player to stay playing their game, they need to make sure gameplay is solid enough to warrant continual play, not that there are achievements trying to keep hunters around. The final two achievement lines are Nearly Immortal for surviving 1,250 minutes in a single game, and The Picture of Good Health for reaching 10 in Fortitude. The first is very simple to understand, for just not dying for a while, and goes hand in hand with the game stage trophy line. The latter is a peek into the skill system, however, not in the most interesting way. This game has a very cool skill system, not because of the way you earn skills, but what they do for the player. Once the player levels up, they earn a skill point, in which they could spend on a skill, which is pretty standard for most games. The greatest thing about these skills are how critical they are to survival and progression. You know a skill tree has done right when the player can't choose what they want to spend their precious points on, because every option is equally important. In addition, some perks are only available through finding and reading a book which grants that skill. While Fortitude is a skill tree, it only scratches the surface for what the skills and perks have to offer in this game. It would have been nice to see achievements fully exploring the skill trees and the perk books able to be found within the world. These achievement lines really hold back this list, taking away precious spots for truly unique challenges in an open world survival game like this. Though there are 33 achievements within these lines, there are 10 individual achievements, which don't do much better for themselves. The first few are introductory, such as Good in the Sack for placing a bedroll and setting your spawn point, Handyman for crafting your first wood frame block, and the Homestead Act for placing a land claim block. These teach a player some of the most basic mechanics and serve as a mini tutorial through the use of achievements. It's always great to see trophies pushing the player to prove understanding of mechanics as they progress, and is expected in most games. Though there are a few more achievements, none attempt to place the player in a situation and ask them to come out, such as Dig Deep for reaching the bottom of the world, and Top of the World, awarded for reaching the top of the world. This is a fantastic game with amazing ideas to offer this genre, but the achievements just don't do it justice. Like I said, 7 Days to Die is a great game. It brings a lot to the table when it comes to survival games like this. You have skill points and skill trees, different books that you can read to increase your perks, and items that you can find, different qualities of the same item. It's really unique in that sense. The issue are the achievements. The achievements don't support the gameplay. They don't facilitate gameplay in any way, where they challenge a player or try to push them to do something they normally wouldn't. With all that said, I give the implementation of 7 Days to Die's trophy and achievement list a 3 out of 10.